Hello, and welcome to the Magentleman Podcast.
Welcome to the Magentleman podcast. If you're here uh, for the nth time, maybe the 12th or the 11th time, depending on which order we release these, we love and appreciate you.
Yes, I am the Magento Mammoth, and this is the Magento Meerkat.
The Magento Jaguar. Okay.
It doesn't start with an M.
The, um. Okay. Sure. I didn't know we had a rule, but okay.
Yeah, that's my rule.
Noted.
You
Noted
can
for next time.
the Jamento Jaguar. It's all good. So let's hop right into the topic here, and the topic is going to be inheriting a code base versus making your own. And kind of in the last episode, we talked a bit about like the difference between like building a whole new project versus kind of getting a project and adding new features on and that bit. But I kind of also wanted to dig into just the fact that like the difference between like working on other people's code and working on your own code. Now, I know for me, my code, even though it's awesome and it's all written the way kind of I would write it, right? Even if you wait a couple of months and then you look back at it, it's basically like someone else's code anyway, right? Like I don't retain writing the code forever, right? Does it make sense what I'm saying? Oh no. Are you frozen? Are you back?
I am back.
Okay.
That was weird.
Hmm. Okay. It's all good. So, I mean, I guess the tangent I was kind of going off on was whether or not you inherit a code base or you write it yourself, um, eventually that code you wrote will seem like someone else's code anyway, because you're not going to remember every little detail about writing it, right?
Yeah. For that is true because the thing is, even if you follow the logic in the code, you may not necessarily remember why you made certain decisions. Because
And
a lot
you
of
said a great
go,
key word right there is why. Like that for me is what good comments are all about, right? Not necessarily how. How is the code is written how. I can read how, but a good comment is why. Why is this like this?
yeah. Because the thing is, a lot of times devs will be like, oh, this piece of code here is garbage, or it's horribly written, or et cetera, right? But it could have just been a hot fix in an emergency, or trying to hit a deadline, and maybe the manager just said, hey, make it work right now, and that's how
Oh
that
yeah.
got in there. And then you know how it is. It's easy to say, yeah, I'll come back and fix it, but tomorrow you might have a completely different priority, and then that thing just never gets addressed. And then there it is, 6 months down the road, staring at you, and you're wondering, like, you could be the one wondering, like, why the hell I did this, or someone else will be like, oh, Steve's a bonehead. why
Yep.
why does this thing look like this, even though you claimed to be a melon head in the previous podcast.
Well, I didn't know I didn't. I'm the Magento Melon.
Oh, okay.
You took it to the head place. That was
Oh, so now you know that I secretly think your head is shaped like a melon. I'm sorry.
it's been yeah, you've laid it all out there. But no, you hit another thing which I had in my notes, which was when some developer describes uh, like an entire code base, let's say, as just trash or awful, it to me it's a red flag. As a certain, unless you're really new, then it's like, oh, okay, they're just new. But usually things aren't that bad. Sometimes they're bad. And that being said, I've really rarely worked on a code base that wasn't bad and awful in some ways, right? Like it's almost always just like you said, like you run into those situations where they just need a fix quickly. And maybe that's happened a couple of times. So that the tech debt never got cleaned up on the first round, and then a hack was put over the top of that, and then a hack over that. And for whatever reason, now I'm looking at this thing that's been hurry up and fix it 4 times or whatever, and it's just like, what is this? It's just ridiculous to my mind. um, but that being said, it's almost always like that, so you would think most developers would kind of just be like, yeah, it's just code. It's not great. Ideally it should be like this other way, but that would take this amount of time. And then you kind of have that conversation too with the stakeholders of like, guys, we should really fix this. It's going to take 2 weeks, but I could give you a hack in like 2 days, right? and then the cycle continues because they almost always will say, yeah, we'll just hack it. Let us have it in 2 days. And it's like, well, okay.
They're like, well, we would love to fix this, but we have this promotion that we're running tomorrow that we need this X, Y, and Z deliverable for. um, so again, it like you said, it's a matter of priorities, right? Because from one developer's perspective, or maybe just from the IT team's perspective, this thing may be a huge issue, but from a business standpoint, they're just like, who cares about this?
Yeah. And I
And why
mean,
are we trying to address it?
that's the nice thing about having like a bigger company with a dedicated tech team, is that eventually you'll probably hit a point where things aren't quite so busy, and then the tech team can just circle back and clean up some tech debt, as long as you've kept it in your backlog, and hey, this thing still needs to be fixed. You can
Yeah,
get back to it.
yeah.
um,
I mean, what would you say are some hurdles to, um, starting off from scratch? Then, I mean, brand new code base, nobody's touched it, or not even not some hurdles, but how would you describe that experience?
well, just like I said, like you're gonna basically forget everything you're doing. So it's sure you could look at your project that you built 3 or 6 months later, and you're like, oh, this is actually pretty well built, right? Like it follows the conventions that I like. It follows uh, the structure and the best practices that I would put in, right? So it's like, this is a good project. I enjoy working on this, but you're still not going to have like the intimate knowledge that you have while you're building the thing, right? Down the road later. So you just
Yeah,
have to make sure that as you go, any little thing that could be like, why is this way, has a nice comment. This is the reason. Do your README stuff, do your documentation. Make sure that's first and foremost, especially if you're going to keep maintaining this project, or just be nice to whoever is going to be maintaining it, and really get that stuff right. Um, yeah, I mean,
I mean, I was gonna say though, you mentioned the word best practices. The thing is, best practices today aren't best practices tomorrow, right? Like Magento will say, "Hey, this thing is supposed to make your help with performance," and then 6 months down the road, they say, "Hey, don't do this anymore." Like
bundling.
JavaScript bundling and using flat tables are perfect
Oh,
examples.
yeah.
That I'm just like, wait, but you said this reason, it's supposed to reduce the read time on tables in the DB, and I'm like, well, that makes perfect sense. But now you're telling me it doesn't work, and I'm like, wait, my whole um belief system has been shattered, Magento. Please help me. um, you were gonna add something?
No, it's a good point. I mean, there's no like guarantee that your best practice that you're starting the project with is going to hold up forever. You might come back 6 months later and it's wrong, and you got to fix that. It's like creating tech debt that you didn't even know you were creating, type of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Um, So I guess that is one benefit of having an old code base, because maybe people before you have already tried things and failed, right? And if they did document it, now you know not to follow a particular thing that is maybe best practice, but it doesn't fit in this particular, if it doesn't work as expected in this particular project. So like someone's
Yeah. I mean, and the other thing that's kind of related to that is sometimes if you're getting a legacy code base, there will be like a handoff period where like maybe the old developer or maybe the old developers still work on the team, right? So you get this new job or you're introduced to this new project and you have these other developers that have known it and used it for a long time. That can be not so great. And it kind of leads to what you're saying, like just because what is great is you get this inherited code base and you in a certain way are blind, so you have to dig in and figure it out yourself to understand this is why these things do these things. But if someone's just there saying it's like this because of that and here's a big spoonful of the reason we did it, you kind of don't get that in your brain yourself. You never dig deeply in because you don't have to, right? um,
true.
so a little bit of blindness can go a long way as far as like just forcing you to grok this new code base. Why is it like this? Oh, I found this area. Look what it's doing. It could actually be optimized here, and you start. It becomes your own that way.
Well, yeah, you made a good point. It is beneficial to have that um legacy resource, right? That person
Yeah.
who made all those key decisions back in the day before you joined the team. Um, but that person may have made some assumptions, and then if you just go by what they say, and then you just make those same assumptions, then something could be lingering in the code base that has no business being there, and everybody thinks, well, they must have had a good reason to have it there, and we're just gonna leave that alone. Um, and maybe I know like some developers are very you know sentimental about projects that they've worked on, so they maybe don't want it, they don't want to see it go in a certain direction. So even though they should be working on something else, they're watching what you're doing and asking you, hey, why are you changing this particular thing? And that could potentially hamper you. um
Oh
I
yeah,
know.
and I mean that kind of leads me to one of my last thoughts on this topic, which is like, um, so the thing that for me is very attractive usually when I get a new code base and I'm not loving what I see or I'm just not understanding, uh, is I'll say, you know what, this just needs to be rewritten. I'm gonna tear it all down, build it back in a way that I totally understand, and you kind of have that temptation to tell everybody like this is just trash. Like you don't want to move forward with this thing. It is messed up, and that way you kind of have that, well, it was really messed up when I got it. You remember how much I said it sucked, remember? So any bugs that kind of happen, and if you don't let me rebuild it, it's just going to keep happening, these bugs. Like that could all be true, or it could just be me saying that because I really want to just rewrite this thing and not deal with that old crap, so you kind of have to just lay that out there for whoever is running the project and say, look, I can dig in and I can try to figure all this stuff out, and it, at least give me a few days to try to get my head around it. Or I could do the thing I really kind of want to do, which is just tear it all out and fix it my way.
There is some benefit to I guess going through that learning curve of understanding someone else's code, because maybe there's some technique or some pattern that they used that you didn't even think of, and initially it doesn't make sense to you, and then you're like, wait, this is genius, and I should do this moving forward. So there is an opportunity to learn, um, and if you do take the approach of, yeah, let's just rewrite this from scratch, right? Now you don't have that veil of well, if there's a bug, it's not my fault because it's someone else's code and it was all messed up. Now it's like, well, it's 100% your code. So all the bugs are your fault, right?
Yeah,
So
well, I mean,
it
a
could
lot of times you'll get that anyway. Like it's if a project is yours now and it's been assigned to you, even if it's legacy,
yeah.
it's yours. And if the bugs are there, they're because of you or whatever, you
Yeah.
know. So
I
I
mean,
mean, yeah,
from a
go ahead.
business perspective, they don't know what amount of the code that you've changed. They just know there's bugs,
Yeah.
right?
And if it's like they handed you this piece of the system, like subscriptions or something, right? Um, whether it's the legacy thing or it's the thing that you built, um, they just know they're bug. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the risk, right? When you just buckle down and learn the existing system, that's the risk you're taking. Is that, look, I'm responsible for this thing now, and I didn't say it's total trash that needs to be thrown away. I took ownership. This is
Yeah.
my legacy code now.
I think it's risky either way.
Yeah, we're very risky people, us web developers. We're like
uh,
skydivers.
yeah, I mean, I would shy away from just saying it's complete trash though,
Yeah,
cuz
I agree.
because then it's like, okay, well, you're obviously not gonna write trash, right? You're gonna write perfect code with no debt. So there's the spotlights on you. It I think you should definitely be careful how you approach talking about an existing code base. But we're out of time, I guess.
We're out of time, I guess. Another good short one. It's not the length of the podcast that matters, DP. It's the
Yeah,
content.
it's the the yes, it's the purpose of the podcast that matters. Well, thank you guys for joining once again. Like, subscribe, and share, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.